Hello there, welcome to Inquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Pen Resurrection Sunday video. In my vintage fountain pen sale last week, I sold a bunch of Parker Vacumatics. There is still one for sale if you're interested. It is the Parker Vacumatic Speedline from 1940. I should apologize to all viewers outside of North America. I was unaware that Meta, the parent company of Facebook, as of the middle of August has turned off the shop feature on my Inquiring Minds Facebook page, where I listed the details of the pens for sale. So unfortunately, you were unable to see the store. That doesn't really matter, however, as you don't actually need the store to purchase pens. If you're interested in the 3 remaining pens or the 1 Schaefer pencil, just email me at inkquiringminds@gmail.com with the pen you wish to purchase, and I'll instruct you where to send your payment via PayPal. You can see the video outlining each one of the pens for sale, and as I said, all of them are gone except for these 3. This is a Parker Vacumatic in Black Pearl. This is a Waterman's Stalwart in Ivory, and the third is a Parker 51 Black Vacumatic. And you can see that video by clicking right up here. And I'll link the video of those 3 pens in the description with timestamps, so you'll be taken right to that pen in the video. Meta Facebook, of course, wants their cut of any sales that happen on their platform. So I'll no longer be having these vintage fountain pen sales, unfortunately. But I have decided that from now on, any fountain pen that I restore that I'm not going to keep for my personal collection, I will offer for sale at the end of the restoration. All you'll have to do is write me at inkquiringminds@gmail.com with your offer to purchase, and we'll arrange a PayPal payment. And let's start it all off with my latest fountain pen back from the dead, this gorgeous 1945 Parker Vacumatic in Azure Blue Pearl striated celluloid. Now don't get excited because I'm not selling this pen. You see, this Azure Blue Vacumatic completes my collection of red, blue, and green Vacumatics. The burgundy pearl and the green pearl are both lockdown fillers from the mid to late 30s, and this Azure Blue completes the color set. If I ever find and restore a lockdown filler in Azure Blue, this 3rd generation Vacumatic might go up for sale as well, so we'll see. In the meantime, join me as I show you how I restored this beauty right now. I had a real dilemma with this Azure Blue Pearl Vacumatic. The nib and section were really awful. So I had to decide how to swap some parts from other Vacumatics to restore my blue beauty. As you'll see in the following video, I changed my mind about the nib twice. And this pen ended up with a nib from one Vacumatic and a feed and section from another. The more I look at this silver pearl that I've just received, this came with all kinds of ink in it as well, and it was a mess. But that section is all chewed up. You can see the nib is in really good shape, and it looks like a medium nib. So now I'm thinking, maybe I'll use the section from this pen and the nib from this pen. And this one is from 1946, and the Azure Blue is from 1945, 3rd quarter 1945. Hard to tell whether there are any dots there. It's 1946 anyway. So the nibs aren't that far apart in the year. So I'm thinking that I might take the medium nib, clean that up, and use that on my Azure Blue Pearl Vacumatic. So here's some video of the inside of this pen. You can see the sack is almost completely gone now, and that rod moves up and down in there, but I just got to get it out without breaking it. There, I put this rod down inside and pushed all the way around there, and you can see the remnants of that sack were what was holding it on. So there's the cup, and it looks in fairly decent shape. There's a little bit of a nick there. I'm going to use my Dremel tool to try to drill most of that pellet out of there, and then we'll get all this old shellac off of here. These dental picks work pretty well for that too. Now I'll sand that down so it's nice and clean, and that pump should work. Again, that spring is nice, the rod is good, some things to clean up, and we're on to the next stage. So getting the clip off, I put a piece of paper underneath the clip so I don't scratch the cap anymore, and try to turn that clip around a little bit to loosen that top jewel. Then use a little bit of rubber matting to try to get that jewel to turn. See, the clip is moving, but the jewel isn't. So I'm going to soak that a little bit, see if I can get some of the grime out of it. So I've used this chisel-like dental probe to scrape off all that excess shellac that held that section on, and use this probe to go through the threads and unclog them from all that extra shellac. And now I'm going to knock this feed and nib out of the section. My jury-rigged knockout block here, and put an Allen key right up flat against that back of that feed. You can see it coming out there, the nib legs behind, and I've got a hole in the bottom there so it can pass through. And there's my nib, and it is the second quarter of 1944 on that nib, 2 dots and a 4. So I used a Dremel tool to drill most of that little pellet out, and then used my dental pick to pull it the rest of the way out. So that now is in good shape. We can polish up the nib and the feed and go at that barrel and cap. And there is the nib all polished up. It's looking great. The Parker Arrow from 1944. So I've cleaned this pen up, polished it. I got the clip removed. Took a little bit of doing to get that top finial out of there, but it polished up beautifully. I've replaced the nib, and it's polished up beautifully as well, and that feed is just glorious. And I did a writing sample with it, and it has a lot of flex to it, but then I decided I don't want this pen to be so fine, so I went to the Silver Pearl one that is more like a medium, and I've cleaned that out. This Silver Pearl pen was a mess, and so I've decided I'm just going to knock that nib out of there, and I'm going to put it into my Blue Pearl, and I'm going to put this nib into the Silver Pearl instead. When you've got choices, you can change your mind. So we'll pull the breather tube out of here and knock that feed out like we did before. And there's that nib and feed. The feed was pretty well caked with ink. The nib looks in pretty good shape, and let's see what it is. It's a 1947, fourth quarter 1947. So we'll polish this one up, and we'll knock this one out and replace it. And there it is after some polishing, front and back. And we put it back in the section. There we go. That's about where it was. Put the breather tube back in, and we put it in the barrel. Now all I have to do is resack that vac pump. Okay, I've trimmed my sack to 28.5 millimeters from there to there, and then we're going to push that pellet into the cup using our pellet pusher. There we go. That clicked in there very nicely. And then we take the other pellet pusher from the Pendragons and insert it like a mandrel right there. A little bit of talc to make our sack slippery, because we can't fold the sack back unless the sack is slippery, because it'll stick to itself. Everybody knows on those hot summer nights when your sack sticks, a little bit of talc goes a long way. And now we just peel it back on itself. See if we can do this in one take. And there it goes. Practice makes perfect. And we can pull the mandrel out, and that looks very good. Nice and straight, and it's working. So now I'll put a little silicone oil on just the rim of that sack, just so that it turns inside the barrel. And we twist again like we did last summer. Twist, twist. And rock is gonna roll with all his might in bedrock. Twitch, twitch, there we go, twist, twist. And a little bit, just a touch on those threads. Not so much as a sealant, but as a lubricant. I put the end of the collet on there, tighten it down, and then just go hand tight with that. Loosen it off, hold onto the pen, give it a shot. There we go. And then we can pull that collet off, and that should be working. Now we'll fill it up with ink and try out that nib. Now before I fill up this pen with ink, I wanted to show you the beautiful transparency on this celluloid barrel. Look at that. Wonderful. So it's nicely transparent. Some of these get ink stained over the years and get really opaque. So let's get some ink into this thing. 1945 Parker Vacumatic. Good as new. And here is what the pen looks like now. I'll do a writing sample in a moment, but I wanted to talk about the 3 generations of Vacumatics while I still had a Generation 2 Speedline to demonstrate. The Vacumatic came into existence in 1933. The year previous, Parker called the pen the Golden Arrow. Those are rare. The Vacumatic pump works pretty much the same throughout the generations of Vacumatics, but the changes to material used and the configuration of the blind cap are indicators of the 3 generations. The first generation of Vacumatics were lockdown fillers made from 1933 to 1938, like this Burgundy Pearl Vacumatic lockdown and this Emerald Pearl Vacumatic lockdown. And these are from 1935 and 1938, respectively. The second generation Speedline fillers were made from 1937 to 1942, like this one from 1940 in black Shadow Wave. And Shadow Wave is a design Parker made of striated celluloid that went vertically down the pen rather than horizontally, like in these Pearl Vacumatics. The aluminum plunger no longer locked into place and thus required a longer blind cap to cover the longer plunger. The third generation Vacumatics were the plastic or post-war Speedline fillers and made from 1942 to 1948, like this Azure Blue Pearl from 1945. Of course, this is a modern vac filler right here that I've installed as a replacement. The clips, cap bands, jewels, and tassies all varied through the 15 years the Parker Vacumatic existed. The first generation Vacs had the Joseph Platt designed Parker Arrow clip that ultimately became Parker's logo and was echoed on the nibs of these early Vacumatics as well. By 1939, the Arrow clip had been replaced by the split Arrow blue diamond clip. The blue enamel paint is missing out of this diamond right here. But here's one on a Vacumatic that I haven't restored yet. The blue diamond represents Parker's lifetime warranty and is similar in function to the Schaefer's white dot lifetime warranty symbol. The early Vacumatics had a variety of cap bands from 1, 2, and 3, and a variety of double-ended jewels. Early jewels were the same striated celluloid as the barrels and caps, and even had sections made of the same striated material. Later Vacumatics came with wide cap bands with this chevron pattern, and the blind caps were streamlined with no end tassie jewel, and the sections and the top jewels were in black plastic or black ebonite. So I hope you can see why I treasure this 1935 Burgundy Pearl lockdown Vacumatic with its top and bottom matching jewels and section. The Parker 51, introduced in 1941, had the same Vacumatic filling system that continued until 1948, when it was replaced by the aerometric filler. That was also the year they retired the Vacumatic from production. To my mind, the Parker Vacumatic from 1933 to 1948 was one of, if not the best fountain pen Parker ever produced. The Vacumatic pump was an ingenious innovation. It's easy to use, holds lots of ink, and the only drawback was its longevity and its relatively difficult replacement process. So I can see why the aerometric was considered superior, but the Vacumatic used vintage materials and manufacturing techniques. If modernized, the Vacumatic pump in a modern metal or plastic pen rivals piston and vacuum filling pens, in my opinion. Here's a look at a modern Vacumatic pump. This one is from my Wingsung 601 Flighter. This little plastic wrench unscrews the pump, so there's no need for a $100 specialty tool. And the pump itself uses modern plastic and silicone parts, so the Vacumatic sack is replaced by this piston. So it's easy to remove, clean, and maintain your pen, and it holds a ton of ink. This Wingsung 601 holds 1.8 milliliters of ink. Just 2 or 3 pumps and it's filled. I don't know why more companies don't do this. Now let's do a writing sample with this 1945 Azure Blue Pearl Vacumatic. And we're back with the writing portion of the review. This is Clairefontaine 90 GSM paper, and this is a 1945 Parker Vacumatic in Azure Blue Pearl. And it has a 14 karat gold medium nib. Let's check the wetness. Well, this is a gusher. I'm really pleased with this pen. That's why it's a keeper. And the nib is ultra smooth with a touch of feedback, just like I like it. That's because I custom smoothed it myself. And the ink is, of course, Waterman's Serenity Blue. And that's the line variation. Yeah, there's some vintage flex to this nib. It's not a flex nib, of course, and I won't be flexing it in any case, but it's nicely bouncy. I'm just not a flex kind of guy. No calligraphy for me. And the line this nib makes is 0.6 millimeters, which makes it a Western, medium, or a Japanese medium to broad on my Richard Binder line width chart, which you can find linked in the description below. And for our quote: and for some reverse writing, it's a little scratchier, but I'm not going to be using it for that anyway. And for some quick writing, no issues at all. Nice juicy pen. And you notice that I'm holding it up here on the barrel and not down here on the section. These vintage pens were actually very, very narrow and short in their sections. And if I try to write with that down there, that's way too cramped. But the barrels are nicely thick, and I get a nice grip with the pen posted like this. So what are my thoughts on this resurrection? Well, this is a keeper right here, as I said from the outset. It writes beautifully, and it completes my red, green, blue collection of Vacumatics. I should actually try to get a black pearl lockdown filler with double jewels. We'll see. The early Vacs aren't cheap, even unrestored. And there you have it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join as a member of my channel for only 99 cents a month, and I guarantee I'll answer your comments in the comment section, and you'll get cool emojis, badges, and sneak peek unboxing videos as well. And that just leaves it for me to say thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.